So, yeah, some of you will be thinking about starting a business and others may have been trading for several months. Whatever stage you're at, we hope that today's session will give you some helpful tips and advice to help you either start up or grow your business. We've got 4 experts this morning who will be talking to us over the next hour and a half. We've got Luke Cartwright, who's Local Enterprise Manager at NatWest Business Banking. Luke has chosen and invited today's panel of business experts. And Luke will be looking at different funding options that could be considered to help get your business off to a great start. Then we've got Sam Carter, who's Director of Ashdown Hurry Accounting. He's going to be discussing the best structure for your business. He'll also be explaining how software can help ensure you operate more efficiently. Then Gavin Bellamy is a Principal Coach and Director of Action Coach Uckfield. He'll be offering an insight into the mindset of high growth entrepreneurs. And finally, Elizabeth O'Shea, Parenting Specialist, Child Behaviour Expert and Director of Parent for Success, will be sharing her entrepreneurial journey and offering tips for success. Please put any questions you have throughout the morning in the chat and we'll pick them up at the end in a Q&A session. So I'm going to begin today's session by telling you a bit about the Business and IP Centre, or BIPC for short. But before I do this, I really am interested to learn who has actually heard of the Business and IP Centre before signing up to today's event. So be grateful if you could pop yes or no into the chat as to whether you've heard of us. So in 2006, the British Library in London started a service to help businesses to innovate and grow, and this was hugely successful. And in 2012, with the support of local authorities and the Intellectual Property Office, a national network of BIPCs in large city libraries began to spread across the UK. And in 2019, Brighton Hove Libraries put in a bid and were invited to join the national network as a pilot centre. So we're still a pilot centre, which basically means we're currently building up our services and beginning to work with partners. So where is the BIPC? Well, we have a fantastic newly refurbished space in Jubilee Library, Brighton, on the upper floor, which consists of a networking area with PCs and meeting pods, and also a flexible conference area for workshops, which is also available for hire. We've also begun working in partnership with West Sussex Libraries last year, and they've been developing a spoke BIPC in Crawley Library, and they've also begun to offer some BIPC services. So what does a BIPC offer? Well, we have business and intellectual property information in the form of books, online databases, and a small team of BIPC specialist library staff who can help you access the collections. These BIPC staff and new business partners have started to deliver free practical workshops and are also delivering one-to-one advice sessions. In the future, we'll also be facilitating networking events so you can link up with other businesses. What's really great about the BIPC is that it's in a library. It's free, it's trusted, and it's a portal to other local and national services. We really do want everyone, including those from marginalised or disadvantaged communities, to use the service. So now a bit about the databases. We've got 10 superb databases and they're worth over £50,000, but these are available for you to access for free with a library card. Some of these can be accessed at home, whilst others need to be used in the library. These databases are basically research tools that will help you understand your market, competitors, and customer trends, and ultimately make better business decisions, whatever stage you're at. So just briefly going through them, we've got Cobra, which is a complete online business reference advisor. You can use this to explore business sectors and find business support and trade legally. It's great for anyone starting a business, as there's over 500 business opportunity profiles covering all sorts of businesses, from pet grooming to snail farming, sign writing to crystal healing. Then there's Grant Finder. You can use this to access funding specific to your business, so female entrepreneur or a green business, for example. Then there's Newsbank, which is a global newspaper database. We have some company research databases, so Fame and Compass. You can use these to search for new sales leads or to find out how competitors or companies in your supply chain are performing. Then there's Local Data Online. That resource helps you understand what's happening in the UK retail sector, right down to a particular town, street or shopping centre. And finally, we've got a bundle of market and industry research databases, IBISWorld, Mintel, which some of you may have heard of, Euromonitor and EMIS. And these can help you understand what consumers want in the UK and globally and why. And they also show you how different markets are performing, including future trends and forecasts. So not to forget the IP part of intellectual property. Intellectual property is vital to the business process. So knowing how to protect your idea, whether it's an invention or a brand name, can save you a lot of time and money. The library staff and IP professionals will soon be offering one-to-one IP information sessions and workshops on patents, trademarks, designs, and copyright, and how understanding these better can benefit your business. So since January, we've been offering these one-to-one business information clinics, and they are a chance for you to meet us for a free advice session to talk through your ideas in confidence, helping you to develop your business ideas and business plan using these BIPC resources. We're beginning to set up more events like this and workshops and webinars in the future, and we'll be facilitating networking events as well. So why would you go to the BIPC for help? As I mentioned earlier, the BIPC National Network is having a superb impact on businesses in the UK. An economic impact evaluation of the network found that between January 2016 and December 2018, the network had supported 12,228 businesses. It also found that businesses which started with the support of BIPC demonstrated stronger survival rates. So after 3 years, normally only 6 out of 10 businesses are still trading, compared with a staggering 9 out of 10 businesses who were supported by BIPCs. So we would be absolutely delighted to meet with you to tell you more about how the BIPC can help you and how you can use these resources to make better business decisions. So we've put contact details on the screen there, but we'll be emailing them out at the end of the event. So that's it from me now. I'm going to hand over to Luke Cartwright from NatWest Business Banking. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jo. It always surprises me and excites me at the amount of support that BIPC offers, and even when I know what support you have, it's still seeing it, you kind of think, I mean, really, everything that's there. So that's amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
It's amazing that it's all free as well.
Absolutely, yeah, which is wonderful. So thank you, Jo, and hopefully that's stalled enough for my presentation to now be on the screen. So hello, I'm Luke Cartwright, and I'm a local enterprise manager in the NatWest Business Banking and Enterprise team. And today what I'm going to do is a bit of a whistle-stop tour to give you some ideas to possibly think about or consider when funding your enterprise or your startup business. So, you know, as it is a whistle-stop tour, you know, we've only got about 15 minutes per speaker today. If there's anything you know I've spoke about that you'd like to speak about further, then I do believe that Janita will be sending out all the speakers' contact details after. So more than happy for you to reach out if you'd like to discuss anything further. So what I'm going to cover today is angel investment, private equity and venture capital, startup loans, the social and community capital fund, grants, invoice and asset finance. So there's lots of ways to fund a startup, and it's really important that you look at all of the options that are available to you to ensure that you personally feel very comfortable that you've explored all the avenues that may be able to get your business off to a great start. Now, I started with angel investment as it's a really popular way for high growth scale-up businesses to start their journey. Angel investment is where an individual or an investor, usually a high wealth individual, provides capital to start your business. This is typically in exchange for ownership equity in your company. The UK Business Angels Association is a really good place to start if you're considering angel investment. Now, they're the national trade body for angel and early stage investing. Investors usually take shares, which is an equity stake in your business, in return for providing equity finance. Has my screen share just gone? I think it has, hasn't it? There we go. And they're often conscious of the fact that a large proportion of businesses do go for a second or even a third round of investment within the first stage, and their equity stake should reflect that. UK BAA currently represents more than 100 organisations, including the vast majority of UK business angel networks in the UK. And they have over 18,000 investors within their inventory. There's also lots of support on the UK BA website, which is really worth looking at, such as different sources of funding, some explanations into what some of these are in great detail, how they work, and there's some great tools on there also to prepare you for investment. There we go. You may also be considering the route of private equity or venture capital funding. Now, the BVCA, or British Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, is the trade association for private equity and venture capital in the UK. They shape policy and best practice standards and have done for the last 35 years. Private equity and venture capital firms raise funds from institutional investors, such as pension funds or insurance companies, most often used. The BVCA provide research and analysis, specialist training, conferences, and best practice standards for more than 650 influential firms. They are aimed at businesses who are aiming to grow rapidly or to a significant size within 5 years. Startup Loan Company is a government-funded initiative that provides startup support via a repayable loan together with a business mentor for entrepreneurs. Now, this is in theory just a startup loan. However, you do get backing of the mentor as part of this startup loan. Now, within their website, on the Startup Loan Company's website, there's a really great guide to starting business. And it's got everything from market research that should be conducted to developing a business strategy and sales forecast. And there's also some really great help there if you are thinking of writing a business plan, which I'd highly recommend you do. The aim of the Startup Loan Company is actually to support young adults who have a feasible business idea but don't have access to finance. However, the only age restriction on the startup loans is that you need to be 18 plus. Now, it says on this slide that applicants have already started their business and need to be trading less than 12 months. However, I did check the website last night, and it does say on there now that it's for any businesses trading up to 24 months. So another option would be to tap into the social and community. Now, this is a registered charity we set up at NatWest in order to help community businesses, charities, and social enterprises. The fund enables us to look into funding these businesses where they may not be eligible for traditional funding options. There's £10 million available within this pot to support businesses that I've mentioned previously, so the charities, social enterprises, and community businesses. And eligible applicants can get loans from £30,000 to £750,000. So if you have a social purpose business, or you run a charity, a social enterprise, and you've been declined traditional bank funding, this may be an option for you. Now, the next one, I know Joe's already briefly touched on this, but it does really excite me. And I can't quite get my head around why not all businesses explore this option. Get a grant. It's free money. I don't understand why you wouldn't. A grant is financial assistance given to a business by a funding body that isn't paid back. Grants are usually allocated to allow a business to undertake a specific project that without financial assistance wouldn't be viable. And it can often be linked to business growth and the impact the project has. For example, if you're expanding your premises or you're doing something within your business that might cause you to have to recruit, then recruitment might be the factor that enables you to be eligible for a grant. A grant's usually a one-off payment that covers a percentage of the cost of the project, and the business owner will have to cover the remaining cost. I'd definitely recommend reaching out to the BIPC who's hosted today to access their grant finder tool. And I know that they're great at supporting you with finding grants with that, because I've sat in on a couple of their sessions recently, which have been incredibly valuable. You can also Google the NatWest Swoop Grant Finder. We've recently partnered with Swoop to enable you to input some very basic information about your business that will then bring up some grants that we believe you may be eligible for. So I'm now going to cover invoice finance, and I think most people have probably heard of this, know a little bit about it, and historically may have views about it being quite an expensive way to borrow money. However, the way in which invoice finance work has changed in recent days, and I'm going to explain a little bit about that. So if you have cash tied up in assets, or if late repayments are restricting your business growth, then different types of invoice finance may be able to help you in a few ways. By providing immediate cash injection, it may be able to help you because your funding availability within the facility changes in line with your sales performance. This means that the borrowing that you can access grows as your business grows. It can also be a convenient way for you to manage your invoices. Now, there's two types of invoice finance, and these are invoice factoring and invoice discounting. Both of these types you can access up to 90% of the value of your sales ledger within 24 hours. The rest being paid once your invoices are settled. With invoice factoring, we collect payments on your behalf, therefore saving you the administration of chasing the payments. With invoice discounting, the key difference is this is a confidential, discrete facility. So you'll still chase the invoices and your customers won't be aware you've got the facility in place. Now, as I mentioned, invoice finance has changed how it works today. And rapid cash is how we've, I suppose, shaken up this part of the industry. So rapid cash is a new way of using invoice finance. And I like to think of rapid cash as an intermediary between traditional invoice financing and an overdraft. You will have a pre-agreed limit with rapid cash between 25,000 and 300,000 and can borrow up to 85% of the value of your unpaid customer invoices. You are only charged for what you borrow, and there's no exit or monthly repayment fees. Rapid cash links to your accounting package, which I know Sam's going to cover in detail, which means the application stage normally takes under 5 minutes. The reason that I believe this is somewhere between an overdraft and a traditional invoice finance option is because you can dip in and out of this facility as you would an overdraft, or you can not use it as you would an overdraft. And if you don't use the facility, there's no fees for having it in place as there would have been historically for traditional invoice finance options. However, it's still drawing down funds against your debtor book, therefore still being an invoice finance option. So moving on to asset finance. Asset finance is used to help businesses get the equipment that they require to grow the business. It usually involves paying a regular charge for use of the asset over an agreed period of time. Asset finance can be used to spread the cost of an asset over its expected lifespan and not further. It allows you to retain cash in the business that otherwise would have been used on that asset. It can help you eliminate uncertainty with accurate budgeting. And I think it's worth just having a look at what kind of things you can finance through asset finance. Interestingly, whether an asset's new or used, if it's durable, identifiable, movable, and sellable, you're likely to be able to use asset finance. And I think traditionally we know about cars, vans, coaches, and trucks that can be used through asset finance, but there's someone here that you may not have thought could be used through asset finance options, such as agricultural equipment, green energy, technology, and intellectual property, marine, both commercial and private, aviation, healthcare and medical equipment. And there's different types of asset finance that you can use depending on what the asset is and how you prefer to finance it. The two most commonly used that we may have heard, if ever, getting a personal or business car finance is hire purchase, where you take ownership of the asset after the final instalment, or contract hire, where you lease a vehicle over an agreed or fixed monthly rental, over an agreed term over a fixed monthly rental. So that concludes my presentation, and I really hope it's given you some ideas of how you can potentially fund the growth of your business or the startup of your business. And if there's one piece of advice that I'd like you to take away from it, I'd say it's reach out for support, because there's a lot. And I think you'll see today from the array of speakers that we've got exactly how much support is out there, but there's a lot more than that as well. So always do reach out to the local services that is around to your area to see how they can support your business, but also local professionals. So thank you very much for listening. I'm now going to hand over to Sam Carter, who is the Director of Ashdown Hurry Accounting and he's going to speak through how best to structure your business and how using software can significantly improve your efficiencies.
Thank you for that, Luke. Right, so I'm going to try and do this as smoothly as possible and share my screen with you all, which I might get horrendously wrong, so I apologise for that to start with. So I think, does that look all right to you, Luke?
It looks perfect, yep.
Excellent. Right, I'm done then before I get it wrong from here. So no, thank you for that, Luke, and good morning to everyone. I think I've got 15 minutes here, so Luke, you might have to turn me off if I go a bit too far. I've set the timer. I'm going to cover 2 points here. Firstly, the best structure for your business, and secondly, how software can help you with your business and improve efficiencies. So first of all, the main structures with a business. There are various structures or kind of setups you can have. It's not a case, and what quite often people will ask me, clients and prospective clients, and say, what structure do I need to have? That's one question, and then I will respond to that question probably with 10 other questions, because there isn't a one structure fits all available to you. So the type of structure primarily that you'll get a limited company. It's the first one. That is its own separate legal entity, so it's not you as an individual. The next one is a limited liability partnership. So it takes some of the benefits of a limited liability company and some of the benefits of a partnership and kind of merges it into one. Limited liability partnerships are slightly newer than a standard limited company, and certainly newer than the kind of standard partnership that you would get. There were a few more benefits to a limited liability partnership a few years ago, but not as many now. So some of you might have noticed limited liability partnerships ceasing and kind of reverting to a more common limited company. The most common is probably a sole trader. So that's where it's one person on their own trading, and it is just them as themselves trading. So that could be, you start a business, unless you set up as a limited company, pretty much by default, you would be a sole trader. Next one is a partnership. A partnership is effectively a sole trader with 2 or more people. So if you're going into business with someone and you haven't gone down the limited company or limited liability partnership route, you will effectively be forming a standard partnership. With a standard partnership, you have one set of accounts, a partnership tax return, and then you split the profits from that business how you choose to. That's something to watch out for, because the standard default is generally a 50-50 split, but different people bring different things to each partnership, and therefore you might have a variation. You might have a 60-40 split if someone's bringing a bit more than the other person, but that's something that you can go through as you're kind of setting up the business and establishing it. The next 2 are not my area of expertise. But I've got a colleague, we've got a particular charity department within the firm if anyone has any queries on these. You've got a community interest company and a charitable incorporated organisation. They're both charity setups. So going down the almost limited company route for one of them. They're very good if you're looking at setting up something that's not for profit or charitable based, then those 2 are options to you. And it's key with any of these things that you pick the right one. The one big bit of advice I would pick on which one to go for, we will go on to some of the pros and cons in a minute, is speak to, either do research yourself online and look at places like gov.uk or reputable websites, speak to a professional, an accountant or a solicitor, or people that know what they're talking about. So Luke will be able to point you in the right direction. I expect Gavin's got experience with Action Coach kind of thing. What I would say don't do is don't speak to your mate down the pub. That is something that happens all too often when we have clients and prospective clients come in. They say, I've set up a limited company. And you say, why did you go down that route? Not a negative, why did you do that? So they've been naughty, but you just ask, what their reasoning was for a limited company. They said, oh, well, my mate who I drink with on a Friday night did it, so he said it works for him, so I've done it. They could have completely different circumstances, so it's not a one structure fits everybody. So that's a quick run through of the options that you've got. The key consideration, so this touches on some of the points where you might go down certain routes. First one, if you were going to go for a limited company, that does bring limited liability for you, which is kind of it's what it says. That means that there's an element of separating your personal finance and your personal assets from those of the business, and that can be key in certain situations. In years gone by, that played a larger part, because you could really draw a line between the two and say personal finance is one thing, limited company stuff is separate. Unfortunately, what happened, some people exploited that a little bit too much and would rack up debts in the limited company and then walk away from them. So what has happened in recent years is lots of your suppliers and people you will do business with have brought in something called a personal guarantee. So when you sign a contract, so if you're in manufacturing and you're buying in lots of materials, you may well have signed a contract with your supplier that includes a personal guarantee. What that personal guarantee means is that in the event that the company can't pay the liabilities, you may be required to pay them personally. So it kind of waters down that limited liability protection that you've got. The next one is taxation. If you are, generally speaking, you look at about £50,000 worth of net profit. Once you go above that figure, it can be beneficial to trade as a limited company, because what you have, once you go over £50,000, you're into, from a personal perspective, you're into higher rate tax. So you're potentially paying income tax at 40% plus national insurance, whereas with a limited company, the current rate is 19%. So all of a sudden you can see, once you get into that £50,000 upwards, there's quite a tax saving potentially. There are other bits to bring in, so dividends, national insurance, but there is a potential that there are tax savings there. The other thing is succession planning. Depending on the arrangement that you've got, it could be easier to bring other people through into the business. So it may be that you want to bring other people in to grow the business, or you want to bring other people in so that you can look to exit the business. With any business, it's very key to look at how you can earn money as you go along, but also the bigger picture of an exit strategy. And you may say, well, that's 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line, but it's always worth considering that stuff. And the more you plan for it, the better the outcome is likely to be. Next one, image. It is quite a big thing, and rightly or wrongly, I think sometimes too much emphasis is placed on image. But what I mean here is that you could go to tender for a large job, and if you're not a limited company, someone might look at you and say, well, actually, they're not that big an outfit, rightly or wrongly. They might say they're not that big an outfit. Just having limited after your name might give them the impression that maybe you're bigger than you are, or you are the size that you are. There's no guarantee about that with size and whether you can deliver. You could have a multinational company that we've seen adverts on TV for. They may not be as well placed to actually pitch and provide on a contract as someone that they've never heard of before. But it could be the difference between you winning a contract or not winning a contract. So I'm not saying you have to do it for that. It's a consideration. The next one, customers and clients. What you have here, sometimes you will get customers or clients that insist on dealing with a certain setup. It's something that's changing slightly, but in years gone by, quite often in the contracting industry, the main contractor, so I'm talking about kind of consultancy contracting, the main contractor would only engage contractors or subcontractors if they were limited companies. And the reason for that is to do with taxation. I won't bore you with the details, but it means that basically if there is a tax issue that arises, it falls on the contractor, or the subcontracted person. So the main person wants that reassurance that if there is a problem, it falls with the person that's doing the work. So again, it's not a reason on itself just to become a limited company or not, but again, a consideration. Regulation, sometimes in certain regulated industries, you can't be a limited company. I believe in the past that you couldn't be I'm not sure if this is the case now, but I believe that you couldn't be a doctor trading as a limited company because there wasn't that ability to remove personal liability. And then there will also be others where you have to be a limited company for various reasons. So again, a consideration. Cost, this is something that we look at very closely when we're kind of advising clients whether they should go down the limited company route or not, because if you were to become a limited company, 9 times out of 10, the costs to deal with the administration of the business, the accountancy fees will go up. So what we always look at when we are advising clients on whether to incorporate and trade as a limited company is the bigger picture. So yes, you may save some tax, but does that saving outweigh additional costs that you're going to incur? Because we want to make sure that people are doing it for all of the right reasons and that you're not saving £1,000 on one side, but having not looked at the bigger picture, you're spending an extra £2,000 on something else. The final consideration that I've listed here, there are obviously others, is administration. For simplicity, a sole trade is the most straightforward option. If you just want to have a separate business bank account, you earn the money, and then that money is yours to do what you want. You don't have to sort things like dividends and payroll schemes for yourself. A sole trade is the best option. So if you're not keen on the administration side of things and everything else is okay, a sole trade is probably the better option. Once you start getting into limited liability partnerships, limited companies, and the other ones listed, the administration levels can go up. So again, none of these considerations it's a case of ticking one and saying that works. It's a balance. So it's looking at the cost, the additional administration, the potential tax savings to justify whether going down a limited company route is right for you. You might say, actually, I hate the idea of the extra administration. I hate the idea of the regulation, but actually by being a limited company, I save a significant amount of corporation tax or of tax in general. So therefore, on balance, I think it's what we're going to do. These aren't all of the things that you need to consider on your business structure, just a few of them. And if you go to any advisor and say, I would like to do this, I would like to think that they're going to come back to you with questions on some of these things. So that's what we've got for considerations. A couple of other points, when to do it. Getting it right from the start is key. So this is where I refer back to what I said earlier about your mate down the pub. So if you start up as a limited company, then you leave it 6 months to go and speak to Luke or Gavin or an accountant like myself, and then they say, well, that's not really the right way to do it. You've then got the process of closing down that company to go to a partnership or a sole trade, for example. So it's key that you get it done correct first time round. I've also put in when is the best time to change, which kind of contradicts almost what I've said to start. That's not an error. What it might actually be the case is that when you start your business, you may well be best off starting as a sole trader for, say, 6 months or the first year, then incorporating into a limited company. That would generally be the better route than going to a limited company from day one, realizing the limited company wasn't right, then incorporating. So that's something to consider. The other big thing to consider, and this is sometimes where people can come unstuck, is your personal finances. So if you've been a sole trader, for example, for the last 3 years, and you're just about to remortgage, it's probably not wise to start a limited company whilst you're on the way to the bank to remortgage, because that could cause you problems when the mortgage advisor or the broker asks you for figures and you say, well, actually, my circumstances have completely changed in the last couple of days. So timing is key from that side of thing. In some cases, it might not be completely the best thing for the business, you holding on, but if it means that you get the the house that you've always wanted, then it might be worth just hanging on to get the mortgage sorted before you go through any significant changes. Other considerations, if you change, for example, if you change from a sole trade to a limited company, you need to make sure that your suppliers and your customers are aware of that. One of the big points that we've already talked about is the limited liability. If you're still trading with your customers and suppliers and invoices are still going out as under your name personally with no reference to limited company, you're not making the benefit of the limited liability, because if your invoices from a supplier are all in your name personally and the worst happens and you go bust, those invoices are payable by you personally. You can't at that point bring the limited company in. So it's key that you make sure that if you change an entity, whether it's to a company or from a company or to a partnership, that your suppliers and your customers are all very aware of that change. The other big one, separate legal entity. So if it is a limited company, you have to bear in mind that it is a separate legal entity. It's not you personally. It's not necessarily your money personally. There is a gap between the two. So it's making sure you factor that in. And then the bit that Luke can probably help you out with is making sure, as well as notifying suppliers, notifying customers and suppliers of any change, you actually get a new bank account. Because again, if the bank account's in your personal name, that's not a limited company bank account. So hopefully there's a few bits to consider there. Next point is how using software can improve your efficiencies. The last few years, probably 5 years, software has gone from being one of those things that kind of larger businesses have and then smaller businesses don't. And the reason for that is it was quite expensive. For a number of years, you'd be paying quite a bit of money if it was something like Sage to have that software. And as a business, you'd probably say, well, actually, I don't really need it. In addition to that, we probably all use computers, technology far more now than we did 5 years ago. So whether it's to do our shopping, to do whatever we do, some people, we spend far too much time on various social media platforms. We're all a lot more able to use technology now. So that's changed. And the big thing now, there are so many more providers, and as with most lines of business, the more providers that come into the market, the more competitive it gets, and then that's when prices start to come down. So you've no longer got that thing of it's hundreds of pounds to get a bit of software. Now it can be £5 a month, £10 a month, and you can get some really good software. So some of the key benefits of using software: accuracy. You're far more likely to get things right using software. It's not a guarantee. I have, and in the years, have had a number of clients that have almost taken it as a challenge to try and use software to get things worse than they've ever got it with manual records. There's no guarantee, but generally speaking, if you use the software correctly, it can be far more accurate than writing records up manually. Speed, you can do things far quicker. It's a lot quicker to use. We will touch on it later, but using the automation side of things with software. So rather than having to pre-type everything, use the software to do some of that stuff for you. Have templates in there so that it's coming automatically. Professional look, when you're sending invoices to clients, having a nice smart template, you can have it color themed, you can have logos on it. It just looks professional when your clients receive your invoices, when they receive your quotes, when they receive automated reminders on things. It looks far more professional to them. Automation, when you talk about software, particularly in the accountancy world, I mean, nothing's too exciting in the accountancy world, but automation is a good thing. It saves a huge amount of time, and it kind of helps with the bits we've already talked about, the accuracy, the speed, because getting the computer to do stuff, there's far less chance of errors, and it's going to be far quicker. And to give you an idea, automation, it could be that you have some kind of credit control function set up so that if invoices are showing as not being paid within a month, your software automatically sends a reminder out to the customers. You can set it up so it's a nice friendly one first time round, just to say, just sending you a copy of the invoice, haven't been paid, can we get paid soon, please? You can also have things like bank feeds, which Luke will be very aware of. So instead of you sitting there typing up every transaction, you actually link your software to your bank and it pushes those transactions in. So all you have to do is probably the final stage to say, that's what this transaction is. That part of it, the bank feeds, I think lots of the software providers estimate that would save about 80% of your time in recording transactions. Regulation. So this is mainly referring to something called Making Tax Digital. So in 2018, I believe, the government brought in Making Tax Digital. It meant for VAT registered businesses that were turning over above £85,000 a year, you had to submit your VAT return using software. The reason for that effectively is they wanted to confirm that the things were right. I think the Treasury estimated they were out of pocket to the tune of about £9 billion a year just because of basic errors that people were making. So they were hoping with the automation side of things, some of that would be removed. And also, we're all aware that we live in a big brother world. By going through software and making the submissions in this way, the revenue are receiving a bit more information on what we're submitting, which is like everything. If you're doing it correctly, you don't have a problem with it. If you're a business that's maybe tweaking the figures in your favour, you might not be quite so keen to be sending more information to the revenue, but technically speaking, we have to do it properly. So I think most people don't have a problem with that. The biggest benefit of using software is the ability to manage your business better. So that's some of the stuff I've already talked about: credit control, automating credit control with your clients, being able to run off reports that will actually show, are you making any money? It's always key to make sure that what you're doing is actually worth doing. And you shouldn't be, with what software offers, you shouldn't be in that situation now where you have to wait until 3 months after the year end, when you get your figures from an accountant, that you actually realize that it's not been worth it. So with software, you can go through it all the time, run off monthly, weekly profit and loss, balance sheet, debtors, and have a much better understanding of your business. You might find that certain bits of your business are working really well, so you know that you need to focus on those. You might be able to highlight that bits aren't working quite so well, and that you actually need to maybe not do that quite so much or change something. So really good tools to be able to manage your business. Here I've listed, and some of these bits I've already covered. What do you get from your software? Like I already mentioned, profit and loss shows you how much money you're making. Balance sheet shows you what the business is worth. Debtors, who owes you money. Creditors, who you owe money to. A cash flow that can be used historically or looking into the future. So how has cash flow been, and going forward, are there any pinch points? That might be when you speak to someone like Luke and say, look, we need some asset finance, we need hire purchase, we need a short-term loan or something. And when you go to providers, and Luke might be able to confirm this, if you can say, look, here are my records, here's the software, this is where the problem's going to be, you're far more likely to get the response you want from the bank than saying, I think there might be a problem, we're not sure when, but can we have £50,000, please? Then compliance, VAT, we've already mentioned, we're Making Tax Digital, and the big one again is automation. So that's the big one for me, the automation that helps you get all of that stuff. Cloud packages, like I mentioned, prices have come down significantly. Some of these here, Free Agent, for example, if you're a NatWest with NatWest business, you actually get Free Agent for free, I believe. Luke might be able to confirm on that one.
Yeah.
That product is probably, I'm not entirely sure the pricing, but I think it's about £30 a month now if you buy it direct. So actually that's quite a saving if you go with NatWest and get that for free. But there are other providers. You've got QuickBooks. Luke might cut me off here because these are nothing to do with NatWest.
I was about to say, Sam, you've got about 30, no time at all.
Yeah, you got Zero. You can use Microsoft, but that's kind of, there are better options available for you than Microsoft now. And then you've got things like Sage, and Sage 1 being the cloud version. So there's lots of options out there. On top of these options, you then if you want to take the business even further, you've got these things like Receipt Bank, iZettle, Chase. So that's things so that if you've got a restaurant, you might use something like iZettle to do all your online payments, or take your payments, Chaser to chase your debts. It's limitless the amount of add-ons that you can get to these things. I wouldn't say go out and tick all of them and add them on straight away, but pick the ones that are right for your business. And then final bits, I know I've overrun here. There's a couple of points here just to factor in. They're not based on what we've talked through this session, but as an accountant, just trying to give a little bit of advice on some extra things. So cash is king. It's always a thing. I hate using cliches, but we've all seen it. We've got multinational businesses. You've got the likes of Woolworths over the years, big businesses that you think that's not a problem, but if they don't physically have the cash to pay suppliers and staff, things can change very quickly for them. So speak to your suppliers, get good terms in place, get good terms from your customers as well. We can't afford to be getting this great work with customers and those customers turning around and saying, we'll pay you in 90 days. It's just not possible. Finance, that's Luke. Look at other opportunities. I think we've all had to change things. We've all diversified slightly over the last 12 months because we haven't been able to work in the way that we had been. Had we not diversified, some of us wouldn't still be doing what we're doing now. And then accounting software, like I've said, make the most of what's available to you. And a lot of that is now available via the cloud. So that is me. I know I've massively overrun, so apologies for that. But I'll pass you back to Luke now. I think we're going to have a questions thing later on. And if there's any questions, we can speak then. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. No, thank you very much for that. I really like how you look into these different things and the kind of the questions that you'd be asking when someone is looking at how to structure their business right from the start. And certainly a great kind of thing to be talking about streamlining right from day one rather than wait until it's too late. So no, thank you very much for that, Sam. Really interesting. I'd now like to introduce Gavin Bellamy. So Gavin Bellamy is a business growth specialist and a director of Action Coach Uckfield. Gavin's going to be, as you can now see, talking about the mindset of an entrepreneur. So thank you, Gavin. I'd like to hand over to you.
Well, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Sam. That answers my first question. You can see my screen, I take it. So a room full of people planning away there. So yes, just very brief introduction. So no, speaking to I'm an action coach. I'm one of 1,200 around the world and 250 in the UK. It's a huge organisation, and NatWest are one of our major national partners. And I'm delighted to be here, especially with people who are thinking about starting up a business or in the early stages of their business. And I want to share some key ideas around that. I will talk fast, so it's in my nature, but we've also got a lot to squeeze in 15 minutes. So can I suggest anything that resonates with you, please make a note, please write it down somewhere, because different things are going to resonate with different people, and there's no point just listening to a talk without taking action on it. I guess that's why we're called Action Coach rather than listen and learn something coach. So we're going to move through a few things very quickly. I will offer at the end of this, all the delegates that have attended a 20-minute chat if you want to chat about anything in more detail. I've booked out some appointments for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, and there's just about enough appointments for everyone that's on the call. So you will get a chance to do that, have a think about what that may be that you want to talk about. Okay, so right mindset for business. I'm going to be recommending a couple of books. Let me just get my timer started so I'll make sure that I'm on time with you. You may want to reference those. Starting up a business is a major challenge. So first and foremost, congratulations to you. You're one of 4% of people, doesn't matter really where you are in the world, that will do that. And the reason you started your business is because you have a dream about what you want it to be or where you want to go. That's the starting point for any creation. And once you've got the dream, we're at the vision. So, what's that going to be? What am I going to sell? What's it going to, what does that mean? Why do I want to do that? Where's it going to go? Once we've got the vision, then we've got to start thinking about the goals. Okay, so in my business, what are the targets that I'm going to set? What is it that I'm going to achieve more specifically? So once we've got our goals, what we then have to do is construct a plan. And this is really, really vital. It's like trying to build a house without a plan or go on holiday without a plan. You cannot take the most important thing in your life at this moment in time, which is creating a business, and not have a plan to work to. And that's already been mentioned. One of the reasons that Luke knows what I do is because he was introduced to us, I think, through 90-day plan, which is what we do with all our clients, short-term planning. But the 90-day focused planning is always a larger part of a much bigger business plan, which you probably have to put together to get bank support anyway. But it's more than just the finances. It's the marketing, it's the sales, it's the team, it's everything. But of course, once you've got a plan, there's absolutely no point in having a plan unless you take action on it. So it's not a static document that's going nowhere. It is something that is live in your business. So my first advice around having the mindset for business is starting here. Don't cut corners. Now, when I sign a client, I'll ask them to read a book if they haven't read it already. And this is the first book that I'm going to recommend to you guys. It's called The E-Myth Revisited, and the author is Michael E. Gerber. And I'm going to cut the book down into about 20 seconds. So what Michael Gerber says is that when you start up a business, you show up as three people. You show up as the technician, the person who's good at what you do. If you're a window cleaner that sets up a window cleaning business, then if your technical skill is the window cleaning. If you're an accountant that sets himself up in their own accountancy firm, then that's your technical skill. If you're a dentist, likewise. And most people make the mistake. The myth is that if they are a good accountant, a good dentist, a good window cleaner, a good whatever it happens to be, physiotherapist, etc., then you're going to be running a good business in that area. But the other two hats have got to be considered. The manager that makes the business work. We've looked a lot today at the management side of things, what kind of software is there, what kind of support from banks can you have, etc. And then finally, there's the entrepreneur. So that leads me to the next question, which is, why have you set your business up in the first place? Now, just very quickly to explain why Usain Bolt has just popped up on your screen. And it's because when he finished running, he had a dream to be a professional footballer and to score a professional goal. Now, unfortunately, I haven't got time to show the outcome of that, but please do Google it. You'll find it absolutely fascinating. He had a dream, he had a vision, he set goals, he put a plan into place. And I'm hoping I'm not spoiling the story too much by saying, well, I'm going to have a Google and have a look. Did he become a professional footballer? Did he score a goal? Go and have a look. This guy is Stephen Covey. He is the author of superb, sort of industry-leading book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the second of the 7 habits is begin with the end in mind. So whilst you're busy thinking about, what marketing can I do, and who am I going to sell to, and where I'm going to find my first customers, and how many hours I've got to put in, and all that stuff, which is going to overwhelm you and swamp you at times. Let's go back to the very, very basics and the plan. Why are you setting yourself up a business? What is the end for you? 2 possible scenarios for you. One is that you simply want to set yourself up as self-employed. In other words, you're going to replace the income that you previously had, maybe with an employer, with your own income for what you do. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. However, once you stop working, the business will stop earning. Now, everybody starts, or most people start at the self-employed stage. Sometimes people will get loans, an investment to set up a company with a team from scratch. But the second question to answer is, do I want to build a business? Do I want to build a business that ultimately could work without me? Ultimately being the key word, okay? Because if that's the case, then your plan and your vision and your dreams have got to reflect that going forward. So that's got to be your starting point. So what is the end for your business? You want to build something you can sell. Again, you're probably that's probably like talking pensions to 18-year-olds. But if you're going to build a business that you can sell, you'll get far, far greater multiples of return on investment for your time and energy than you would in just building a highly profitable business. Luke and Sam can tell you that a business that is owner independent can often sell for 8 to 10 times its net profit going forwards. So here's a little bit of the other mindset issues around that. This is what people see in you when you set up your business. They see the actions that you take, the decisions you make, and the behaviors that you exhibit. And that's really a little bit like the bit of the iceberg that's showing above the waterline. The results that you get are going to be associated with the actions you take, the decisions you make, and the behaviors that you show. But there's far more to you than those visible things. And these are the things that really one needs to be aware of as a business owner. The first is your skill set. So all of my clients, without exception, will be developing certain aspects of their business performance and their business skills. They'll be learning, or they'll be reading, or they'll be attending workshops or seminars, but they'll be developing their skills and the skills of their team, those of God's team. It's the easiest thing to change. If you're not very good at X, then learn how to do X or find somebody who can. The second level down is slightly harder to change, is your beliefs. But what I encourage people to do, particularly when they're setting up a business, is look inside yourself for those beliefs that are going to help you grow your business and those beliefs that are going to get in the way. I'll give you an example of a belief that gets in the way. I'll give you an example from one of my former clients, actually. And that is that it's not right to borrow money. You know, I've never had a credit card in my life, so why would I saddle the business with debt? And in that particular answer, it nearly cost them the employment of 8 of their members of staff. Because referring actually to something that Sam said earlier, you know, money in the bank, contingency there, but when 2 major challenges come along, that money quickly runs out, the cash flow runs out, the business is notionally profitable, but it hasn't got any money anymore. You know, we borrow to invest. If you back yourself and you back your business, then borrow in order to back that plan. Okay, that's an example of a belief mindset that might get in the way of growing a business. I don't want to borrow any money. Okay, there'll be many others. What are your values? What drives you forwards? Because your values are going to attract both your customers and your future team if you build a business that's going to work without you. And these are things to be aware of. And then finally, our sense of identity. Now, that's a lot trickier. That's very deep when we get to that stage. Our identity is related, you know, right from a very early age. We identify ourselves with the people we delight, the family we belong to, the music that we like, the football teams we support, etc., etc. But sometimes our identity may change when we go into business. Are we a business owner, or are we the owner of business? I haven't got time to go into the subtleties of those two things at the moment, but let's just sit there. So these are real important mindset considerations. What is above the waterline is what we get. It's our have, okay? And that's as a result of what we do. But this is the most important part, who we are. That's going to determine success. You know, we're taught at school that the more you do, the harder you work, the more you'll get. And that's not true. I'm just going to say that. It's not true. If you think about it and you've got 1 customer and you want 2, and then you've got 2 customers, you want 4, you can't keep doubling the amount of effort and time they put into it, because you'll hit a ceiling. Okay, so some thoughts there. Okay, these are the first 4 areas that you need to really master in your business. Again, I'm going through this at a very fast pace. So if you want to, you know, talk about any of these areas in the 20 minutes Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm happy to do that. But let's just go through them very quickly. Destination is where your business is going. It's your vision. It's how quickly you intend to grow. It's what it is that you intend to sell. Delivery is your customer experience. What are they going to see in buying from you? How easy is it to buy from you? How consistent is their experience of working with you? If they order X, do they get X, or do they get Y? You know, delivery and destination are really important aspects of the business. Knowing your finances. You do not need to be an accountant or a bookkeeper. What you do need to do is have the mastery of the finances in your business. You need to know your break-even point. You need to have a cash flow forecast. You need to know, spend £1 on marketing, how much money do you get back, and how much of that is profit? If you spend £1, you get £1.20 back, and 10p of it is profit. You would do that all day long, wouldn't you? The trouble is, most business owners I come across don't know which bits of their marketing works, or even if it works at all. So it's important to get to use your numbers. My clients will have a dashboard. They will track financial numbers, they'll track other numbers, they'll track number of inquiries that have come in, where they've come from, they'll track how popular they are, you know, customer feedback scores, all kinds of things. But finances are really important, so know your numbers. And time. You set up a business because you have a vision. Use your time wisely. Know how you use it. What is it that you do that contributes to the business, and what of it that is a distraction or delusion? Measure that. Once you've got those things sorted and working well, you have a business that's working effectively, you've then got to turn your attention to the two other key areas, your marketing and your sales. And they are very different things. They are different. Marketing is attracting people into your business, making them aware, interested, bringing them to a decision, and enable them to take action. Once they've taken action, they're in your sales process. What are the key steps along the way? What's the next thing? They made an inquiry. What's your first stage? What do you do next? What do you do next until you get a signature? How are you tracking your sales? Are you using a database? What are the key stages? What's the conversion rate? Now, this may sound this may sound overwhelming for some of you when you're right at the beginning, because what we tend to do is show up and think, well, what am I going to do today to get my business off the ground? What I'm saying is, well, let's just step back and take a breath and think, what is it we've actually got to do to make sure that our marketing and our sales are working effectively? So the business mindset is finding the time to address these areas through your plan. 90-day planning, you will focus on one of these two areas in particular. Okay. Build a plan. Here's one of these slides that I think I wanted to put in. I wonder if I have time, but actually I think it's a really important mindset issue. And it's not only the biggest mistake, but it's the most common mistake that I see. Is for a small business to think like a small business. So let me explain what I mean by that. Even if you're only working for yourself in the first instance, you are marketing, sales, delivery, administration, finance. You're all of those things. How do those roles split up? How much time do you give to each of those roles? What's involved? And then as you start to bring 3 people into your team, they will start to take some of those roles off of your hands, but they will be they'll be defined roles by that stage. So it's easier for you to manage. How else can a small business think like a small business? Well, you can make assumptions about who wants to buy from you and who doesn't want to buy from you. And quite often we get those assumptions wrong. So the flip side of this is, if you want to be a large business, think as a large business. Have a strategic plan. Be thinking about your objectives. Have a brand and material that looks like a large business. One of my most successful clients, they're one of the biggest in their field nationally. They supply off-road add-ons to 4x4s, Jeeps, all those sorts of things. It's a big business. It turns over a couple of £1 million. There's only 4 of them in business, and they've got a small workshop. And yet they come across as a big business to their clients. Measure everything that you do. Challenge your own assumptions. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up with that, with this young lady, Tegan, who's mentioned to you, Luke, earlier. Tegan is a client of mine, and she's just been shortlisted for 3 international awards. And tomorrow evening we'll find out if she's won any of those 3 awards. So I'm very excited about it. But the reason I've mentioned Tegan is because she fits perfectly into this mindset issue. I've been working with her for 4.5 years. And we got to a point about 2 years ago when part of her business was failing. Retail outlets in North Lanes of Brighton, footfall had fallen because of the train problems, and then redevelopment of the area. And the shop was just really, really struggling. And every time Tegan came along to a session, she was getting increasingly downbeat. So we looked at the numbers, we looked at the plan. She went back to square one. She looked at her online trading, and only last March, she completely moved over from retail to online. It was nothing to do with the pandemic. That decision had already been in the pipeline. Went back to the basics. Who am I? What do I want to sell? Who do I want to sell to? Who do I need around me in my team? Where do I need the investment from to make this work? And between March last year and January of this year, she grew her online revenues by more than 800%. And that's why she's been shortlisted for 3 awards. But the most important part of her journey is that she struggled, and she went through the challenges, and she went through the dips and the troughs and all those other kind of things that are going to be there on the way. Mindset is what drove her through, in the business mindset. She knows her numbers, she's got a dashboard, she understands her business, she's learned these things over time. It's not been an overnight success. So those are my key, very, very quick run through the key aspects of business mindset. Have a plan. Think about where your business needs to go, what you need to do to get there. And if you'd like to have a 20-minute chat with me, then there you go. Either scan the QR code or type that in and you'll come to my calendar for next week. If you can't make that work, then you know, put something in chat and I'm sure that Luke will forward it on. But I'll be more than happy to have that conversation. No strings attached. I'm really excited to know and get to talk to people who are starting up a business and making things work. And I'm sure you've got plenty of questions. So there's the opportunity to do that. Luke, that's me done. Back over to you.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Thanks for that. It was really, really interesting, and I think, you know, it's always really good to look at mindset. And I like how you were talking a few times around that, about starting with the end in mind. And I think we can all kind of look at short-term goals, and it can be quite easy to set out our short-term goals, but we do lose focus on our long-term vision, which is incredibly important, especially with the way the world's changing digitally, and I suppose how customers are looking at different businesses.
Well, if I may just make one final comment on that, you're absolutely right. The problem is that when you set up a business with only short-term goals, you're going to get very, very busy in the first weeks and months. And what tends to happen then is that the bigger picture thinking gets lost. It just disappears. Yep. Because you're just concerned about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's tomorrow's opportunity, what's tomorrow's problem. It's the biggest mistake you can make is not to have a plan. But I know, Luke, in your case, I'm preaching to the converted. So there you go.
Thanks for that, Gavin. Really, really interesting. Like, brilliant. We're now going to introduce someone who's going to talk about their journey as an entrepreneur, to give you an insight into what her journey's been like. So I'd like to hand over to child behaviour expert and the founder of Parents for Success, Elizabeth O'Shea.
Hello, everybody. Lovely to be here. I'm just going to share my screen for a second, and hopefully you will be able to see this. My name's Elizabeth, and I started really where you are about 10 years ago. So within a year of being launched, I appeared on BBC Breakfast. This is me on BBC Breakfast. And I'm going to share how I got there, because sometimes it's useful to understand the journey, but I hope that I'm going to echo a lot of what Gavin has been saying about the journey and the mindset. Shortly after that, I'm invited to speak on the media. So I've been on BBC World News, I've been on Radio 4 Women's Hour, and on a regular basis, at least once a month, I'm asked to speak on BBC Radio. This was me on Sky News, and my journey has taken me generally to be working as a parenting consultant. So I used to have clients face to face. In the last year, all of my clients have been on Skype. But what I want to share is what happened when I first started and how I got to this point. So at this point now, I charge parents between £1,500 and £2,600 to do a parenting course with me. I am a complete expert in child behaviour, but specifically anger management. But I didn't start like this. So when I first started, 10 years ago, this month, I had just been made redundant by my job. I was working for Homestart. I'd been there 5.5 years, and they ran out of money. So what I did was I thought, what do I do? So I started applying for jobs, and I'd just been accepted to do a job. And then I had a back problem. Long story short, that night I was rushed into hospital for emergency back surgery, and I had to have the surgery and was flat on my back for 6 weeks, not able to move. And I was lying there thinking, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I was thinking of all the things I'd ever done. The job I'd most enjoyed was doing parenting coaching. I'd run a small course that I'd set up on my own. And I thought, if I could help 1 million children have a happier childhood, the next 20 years of my life will have been well worth it. So as Gavin said, you have a dream, you have a mission, and that was my mission. I wanted to help 1 million children have a happier childhood. So what I then had to do was work out, how am I going to get there? So what I did is I had to apply for another job. I didn't have, this was just a vision at this point in time. So I started another job, which I did for 18 months whilst I funded the startup to my business. And I set up a website. And my new name, because I went through all the different URLs and things, was Parent for Success. And what I did is I started blogging. So I was rubbish at it, frankly, but I started blogging and I started just putting out my thoughts and ideas on my website. One of my blogs was on controlled crying, and that is the blog that BBC found, because they were looking for a speaker to talk about controlled crying, whether it was right or wrong. But when they researched it, my blog came up. And so that was how I received my invitation. Now, I was rubbish at blogging, but I kept getting better at it. And gradually, I kept on working at it. I started up low-cost, well, free parenting courses to start with. I just went around all the local schools and said, just send me anybody you want for free, and I'm going to run a free parenting course. And then gradually I started increasing the amount of money I would charge for courses. But it was interesting, some of the things that Gavin was saying, which is that vision to help 1 million children have a happier childhood was the vision that kept driving me. Every morning I would wake up and I would think, I'm going to keep going, keep going, keep going. But you can't do it on your own. So what I did is I invested in mastermind groups. I went on the NatWest Accelerator group, but I found a business buddy, and every week my business buddy and I spend 1 hour looking at each other's businesses. I set up a small mastermind group of my own. We call it Master Mums, and we meet once a month. But on the NatWest course, I was lucky enough to be introduced to a mentor, and you need someone to help you. You need someone to guide you. And my mentor, I was very lucky enough to find Claire James from Pivotal Moments, and she has helped guide me. And when I started in NatWest, she gave me a few sessions for free, but I now pay her every month to have her expertise and advice to help me. As I said, I now charge quite a lot of money for the parenting courses. And one of the things that Claire helped me realize is I wanted to be a generalist. I can help parents if their children can't sleep. I can help if parents, if their children won't work at school, if they're having friendship issues, if they're being bullied. But Claire said, I want to take you through the Pumpkin Plan. So Pumpkin Plan was a book written by Mike Michalowicz, and he says, find your perfect client and then hone your business to serve that client. And when I thought back over all the clients I had, I thought the one client that sprung to mind that I loved working with was a couple who had come to me with a very angry 6-year-old who was completely out of control. The couple came to me, they were at their wits' end, the mother was in tears. They just didn't know how to solve it. And over the next few weeks, their child turned from an angry, aggressive little 6-year-old into the most beautiful little girl. It was their dream come true. It was their vision of their parenting vision, and I helped them achieve that. So now I focus in on angry children. But success doesn't happen by accident, and you have to keep working and keep working and keep working at it. So my website has now been tailored to, hopefully when people land on it, if they have an angry child, to identify if they need my help. And if they need my help for that angry child, they'll come to me. I was lucky enough a year ago, though, to be approached by someone from Hotmart. So I am now creating the online course to be able to replicate those who can't afford to work with me directly. So I'm still building that, and they've helped me create the marketing. I haven't paid for this, but I have worked incredibly hard. I've put about 250 hours work so far into it, and I'm running a beta test ready for the Hotmart course to take off. But something else interesting happened. A Chinese lady approached me and she said, Elizabeth, I want to take your skills to China. And I wasn't entirely sure what she meant, but over the last year we've been working, and she has persuaded me that the Chinese need my work. And I just want to share my screen one last time, because this was the photograph that was taken last week. This is my very first parenting workshop. I have recorded some videos which this group of parents took part in and watched. And this is the very first British Elite Parenting workshop in China. That's me at the background doing my live Q&As. So this was how you go from a small scale business to launching in another country. And Betty is now my business partner. We're just setting up a limited company. I've been a sole trader up until now. We're setting up a limited company, and we're now going to look at Train the Trainer, which is how to train Chinese parents not only to have the basic Chinese parenting skills, but then what do you need to be a parenting consultant like myself? And then how do you apply all of those skills to different areas like homework, like anger and aggression, like sleep problems, so that the Chinese, we can create a whole bank of Chinese trainers. And I want to take this back to my mission, because my mission is to help 1 million children have a happier childhood. And this is one route to doing that. Betty has persuaded me we should reach 1 million quite soon, particularly if we train the trainer. And that's the purpose of having a vision. That's the purpose of thinking, what do I really want in my life? Because when you can do that day in, day out, and know that it gives you huge pleasure, and create a multinational business, that's what it's all about. So I'm going to hand over to you if you have any questions. Great, back to you, Luke.
Thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. If that doesn't inspire you, then I don't know what does. I mean, you're a living, breathing example of how someone who everything Gavin covered, really does help you, build a fantastic business. And incredibly exciting to see the work you're doing over in China now. I saw that on your LinkedIn quite recently, and I just thought, wow, that's what a reach. I mean, that's absolutely outstanding and incredibly exciting. So thank you so much for sharing your journey there, Elizabeth. And really interesting to hear around some of I suppose the stumbling blocks that got you to where you are now, and some of the reasons I suppose behind why you are where you are now. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'll second that. What Luke said, Elizabeth. That was a really interesting talk, and thank you to all the speakers. They're all fascinating. We have got one question already come into the chat, which is for you, Elizabeth. It's from Jules. It says, thank you so much for sharing your ideas and your work. Really thought-provoking and the best presentation of the morning. They wondered if you had a psychology background.
No, I actually have a nursing background. I trained I trained as a qualified nurse, but I had 4 children of my own, so couldn't pursue that. I worked as a nurse for a long time, but my passion then became, how can I be the best parent I can be? And dare I say, I had all the challenges you can have with 4 children. You can guarantee one of them was going to go off the rails, one of them was going to be a fussy eater, one of them wouldn't sleep at night. It was going to happen. So I learned a lot from that. But what parents have said to me is, I help get inside their child's brain. I help them understand why their child behaves the way they do, and make it understandable so that they can then change their child's behavior. But I never see the children. I only work through the parents. And that's the wonderful thing about the work I do, because I give the parents the skill and I skill up the parents so that they can help their own children.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got another question for Elizabeth. Did you have to liaise with any British government or Chinese government agencies in order to operate in China?
That's a very good question. There is an agency, I think they're the BBC, the British something council, that do help. At the moment, we haven't involved their help, but we will be applying for Chinese grants to help us expand. Our vision is to create a huge platform where people can access the parenting course, the train the trainer sessions, and then we'll do every month we're going to create new sessions. But at the moment, no. However, there is always the issue of money being transferred out of China. So at the moment, it's going to come into actually my bank account, but we will need to set up a bank account in China in order to do that. And we will liaise with people. However, I did need a specialist lawyer to help create a legal agreement between myself and Betty so that we could set up a Chinese company between the two of us, because there are complications.
So exciting. I bet when you started this business, you had no idea that you'd end up working with someone in China and learning about Chinese parenting.
And that's the advantage of networking and getting yourself known, because everybody on this call will have strengths and weaknesses. And for those of you setting up a business, it's sort of like starting off small and working out how can I get from here to where my vision is? And then it will change. And one of the things in the NatWest Accelerator they talk about is this pivoting. What you think is going to happen doesn't happen. You suddenly find that something, some curveball comes in, and you have to always check, does it meet my vision? Is this going to help me achieve what I really want to achieve? And with the Chinese market, it was, yes, I can reach 1 million children quicker than probably in any other country, because there are so many Chinese children. So that's why I was able to say yes to that opportunity.
Yeah. Now the question's coming for you, Elizabeth. Which other countries are you looking to expand into, or are you?
That's a really good question. What I discovered when we started working with the Chinese don't want another parenting course. In fact, parenting courses per se are very difficult to sell. What they want is a career opportunity. And when they found out what I was earning to work with parents, they then realized that the skill set I have is really useful. Mm-hmm. We want to establish the platform in China first, but it will create the model for any other sort of like India, for different countries in Europe, because once we have the platform and we establish the viability of it, to make sure that it's a success, we can then take that to other countries. And I can work with people similar to Betty. So Betty does my marketing and my liaison in China, but we'll need to create other Bettys to be able to work in other countries with different speaking skills.
Thank you.